All right, we have some breaking news on this Monday, March 3rd. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Hope everybody's week is off to a fantastic start. NFL Combine just wrapped up. We were in Indianapolis all week, and Howie Roseman, he just never stops working. Coming up here on the show, we have some breaking Eagles news to get to as NFL free agency is set to begin next week. The Eagles are releasing cornerback Darius Slay. This is a move that we've talked about possibly happening, given the financial dynamics at play and some of the youth that is on this Eagles roster at that cornerback position. And as part of this conversation, does this signal that a big move is coming for Philadelphia and Howie Roseman, like a Myles Garrett trade? Because the Eagles continue to be talked about as a potential destination for the 2023 NFL Defensive Player of the Year. A team like the Washington Commanders also being talked about as a Garrett suitor, and they just traded for Deebo Samuel. So now you have a little bit of an arms race. Commanders are making moves, trying to catch Philadelphia. Now are the Eagles trying to distance themselves from a team like Washington, an NFC East rival, and a team that is a threat here in the NFC. Also, does this mean that Darius Slay is gone for good, or could he come back? Before we talk about all of that and more, just want to say thank you to all of the real ones for your continued support of everything that I do right here on Eagles Now. This morning, we surpassed 114,000 subscribers. Let's keep building. I'm going to give you Eagles shows every single day year-round. The content does not stop, so be sure to lock us in and hit that sub button. So Adam Schefter, breaking the news just moments ago on this Monday morning, Monday afternoon, depending on where you're watching from, that the Eagles are releasing six-time Pro Bowl cornerback Darius Slay. If he is designated as a post-June 1 release, the Eagles will save $4.3 million against the cap. Well, Darius Slay will indeed be a post-June 1 designation, so this money is not going to be available for Philadelphia in free agency because of the post-June 1 designation, but it will be available for Philadelphia later on this offseason. Now, a couple of interesting things at play here. This is a move that we talked about happening, given the financial number. Slay was also due a $14.5 million roster bonus if he was on the team. He's also 34 years old. The Eagles could be trying to get younger at this position. The Eagles winning the Super Bowl opened up a pathway for a move like this to potentially take place. Howie is making this move probably with the thoughts in mind of opening up some cap space to give the team more financial flexibility. If the Eagles don't bring Darius Slay back, this could give him an opportunity to sign with another Super Bowl contending team. He said that he could see the writing on the wall of this move possibly happening, but it also allows him to sign with the Super Bowl contender. The Eagles are also pretty loaded at the cornerback position going into next year. You have Quinyon Mitchell, who was terrific as a rookie. You have Cooper DeJean, who was amazing too in his debut season in the NFL. What I would want Philadelphia to do, keep Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, obviously, but the question becomes, do you want to move Cooper DeJean to the outside? I would keep him at that slot nickel role because I think that allows him to be that versatile chess piece, which better utilizes him, and he becomes such a versatile player for your defense where when you line him up in the slot, he can match up against wide receivers. He can match up against a player like Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl, which I predicted happening. I had said if I'm Vic Fangio, I'm putting him there to put him up against Kelce because he's athletic, physical, has the speed and versatility to put the clamps on a player like that. But when you use DeJean in the slot, he can play against the run more often, and he succeeded with that and passed it with flying colors, but you can also use him as a blitzer. So I would keep Cooper DeJean in the slot. But think about some of the players that you have on this team. When I was at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, a player who was talked about a lot as a player who a lot of people are excited about, who didn't get to play a lot defensively, but when he did, played well. Last year played well, getting some defensive snaps, but also was a marquee contributor on special teams. That was Kelee Ringo. So you have Kelee Ringo going into year 3. He's a very cost-controlled, cheap, and affordable player. But you also have a player on this team like Eli Ricks, who's lengthy and long, and he's more of an outside corner as compared to an inside guy. And so you let Darius Slay go if you don't bring him back. You have Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Eli Ricks, Keely Ringo. You could draft a player, but that $4+ million that you open up by letting go of Darius Slay, that could be the money that you pay to a player like Isaiah Rodgers, whose price tag in free agency is probably going to be between $5 to $7 million. And what this also does with the money saved this year, with the money saved next year, and on the cap, you're saving $4+ million. With the roster bonus, that's $14+ million. It could open up money for Howie Roseman to pursue a player like Myles Garrett. And that trade could become also a post-June 1 addition to your team. And so those are all of the things that immediately come to mind with the Eagles releasing of Darius Slay. And these are some of the things that we talked about happening weeks ago here on the channel. And as far as Darius Slay's legacy in Philadelphia, this ended up being a phenomenal trade by Howie Roseman. Considering prior to Slay's arrival, the Eagles kind of sucked at cornerback for a long time. And they could never really get that number one guy who was a steady contributor, that lockdown guy on the outside for several years. They had a player like Ronald Darby who was just okay there for a little while. They tried to bring in a player like Nnamdi Asomugha. He was a disaster. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie couldn't play, he just ran fast. And so at Darius Slay, he became the shutdown corner for this team, who was really good for a long time. And so on that March 20th, 2020 trade, Slay was traded to the Eagles in exchange for a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick in the 2020 NFL Draft. And then the Eagles signed him to a 3-year deal the next day, worth $50 million, including $30 million in guaranteed money. That was a fleece of a trade by Howie Roseman. You got one of the top corners in the game for a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick, and you signed him to a pretty team-friendly deal. And what a career for him up to this point where Slay has become a borderline Hall of Famer. And something else at play here is the longevity. He's been able to get it done for more than a decade. He's with the Lions from 2013 to 2019, and then with the Eagles from 2020 through 2024. Super Bowl champion, first-team All-Pro in 2017, 6-time Pro Bowler, NFL interceptions co-leader in 2017, a team favorite, a team captain, and a player who is widely respected. And just with his Eagles resume, won a Super Bowl, 3-time Pro Bowler, 82 games played, the longevity and consistency was there. That's in the regular season and in the playoffs, by the way, and a passer rating allowed of just 84.8. Big play Slay. Made big play after big play. And let me say this too. A lot of people thought, Slay wasn't good in the regular season. That's cap. That's false. Slay was really good in the regular season, even better in the playoffs. His Pro Football Focus numbers went up by 10 points as far as overall grade, coverage grade, and in the Super Bowl, in the playoff run in general. Lockdown guy and a really good leader who helped to usher in the next era of cornerbacks for this team. With Quinyon Mitchell, with Cooper DeJean, with Keely Ringo, with Eli Ricks, hopefully, if he can really streamline his development a little bit. And when I was in New Orleans and you talked to some of the other corners on this team about the impact that Slay has had, both with film study, with culture, on and off the field, adapting to the scheme, learning the scheme, they will rave to you and did rave about Slay. It's not just the impact that you can account for on the field. It's also in the locker room and off the field. Now, I do want to segue to this because this is a real conversation after being at the NFL Combine. Does this signal a bigger move that could happen? can't be ruled out. The Eagles are looked at as a team that is in the running for Myles Garrett, that is interested in Myles Garrett. And with that roster bonus that you no longer have to give Slay of $14.5 million by clearing up the cap space of $4+ million, that could allow the Eagles to go after a player like Myles Garrett, that can open up money, too, to make a marquee free agency signing elsewhere. But let's focus on some of the players who the Eagles could maybe bring back. Zach Bond, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Isaiah Rodgers. And then Howie Roseman, too, could target the cornerback position in the NFL draft. They met with a few corners in the draft, and it's a pretty good corner class from everything that I gathered and being at the NFL Combine in Indy all week last week. And you think about this Eagles roster, right? They're deep. They're talented. So they don't have a lot of massive needs on this team, and they can afford to go with the luxury pick. They could trade out a 32 too, and they could get a couple of second-rounders, a couple of third-rounders, and they could pick up some really good players who can impact this team in 2025 and beyond. So, again, Slay could come back at a lower number. If he doesn't come back, you do him good by letting him sign with another team. But regardless of what happens, if you bring him back or you don't, you're freeing up a decent amount of coin here to be active in free agency, trying to retain your own free agents, trying to sign other players, or making a trade for a player like Myles Garrett, which was one of the marquee storylines and talking points and conversations that was taking place in Indy all last week. Because the Eagles' interest in Garrett is certainly real. So don't forget to hit that sub button. Probably be back later today with another video up here on the channel. Maybe talk some combine visits and formal interviews that the Eagles had with some players in Indy to give you a better idea of some potential draft targets for the Birds. Thanks so much for watching and your continued support of the channel. We're humming, and we're going to keep it going. Let's go Birds. Super Bowl champs. Let's ride.